We have just one more presentation to get through before our break. We are going to run into our break just a little bit. I apologize to all of you, but we'll make sure that we get to that. So now I'm going to turn it over to Helen again, as well as Dan Gruber. I already introduced Helen. Dan, many of you know, he's been a steward since 2003, and he's kind of the incentive behind the Parsons Field Institute, and he's the one who pushed to make it a reality. He's still heavily engaged in the strategy that we have and plays a huge role in the Conservancy's education efforts. And Dan remains very involved in a lot of the projects that we have, including our IUCN work. Take it away.
All right, hi again. So I'm excited to present with Dan Gruber some of our work with the IUCN. So I'll start by giving an overview. Oops. There we go. About what is IUCN. The mission for IUCN is to influence, encourage, and assist societies to conserve the integrity and diversity of nature and ensure any use of natural resources is equitable and ecologically sustainable. Essentially protecting nature, but also in the context of our society. It was founded in 1948 and it is the world's largest global environmental organization. It partners with thousands of organizations across the world, such as the McDowell Sonoran Conservancy. It also has an observer status at the United Nations General Assembly, and so helps to guide policy on biodiversity related matters. So it has many programs. One is the green list of protected and conserved areas. There's the red list of ecosystems. There's key biodiversity areas. And there's the red list of species, which is the most well-known program of IUCN and the one under which our program lies. There's also new programs coming out on restoration and conservation. Our IUCN success story, there are many IUCN success stories. So the way that the red list works is it assesses extinction risk across species, helping to catch species of concern, and then planning and implementing conservation strategies to protect these species, shown here, and also species like these. So you might wonder, why did the McDowell Sonoran Conservancy begin the Sonoran Desert Plant Specialist Group? And the reason is so that we can help to assess the plant species of the McDowell Sonoran Preserve. We already had a flora list of these species, but we had a hard time understanding their conservation status and what we should be doing about them. And so through using these as assessment tools, we can start to understand our species in their regional and global context and understand which ones may be threatened. And from there, and also working with the almost 4,000 species across the Sonoran Desert, we can move into planning and acting on conservation planning. The way the red list assessment works is it uses a globally used standard for assessing threats and species level probability of extinction to categorize each species into one of these threatened categories, which you'll note includes these least concern category, which means is obviously you're not concerned, it's widespread and doesn't have population declines, and also data deficient species that need more information about their populations. And so here's how it works. We have to the left here, these are the data fields that we need to fill out and to draft the assessment. That information, we then use the criteria. There's 5 criteria that I referred to before, and each of those have numerical thresholds that help us put these into categories. So our targets as the Sonoran Desert Plant Species Specialist Group is vetting the Sonoran Desert Plant List, which is nearly 4,000 species, and that has been done for all the species taxonomically. And right now we're not at our target, but we hope to eventually, once we have all our planning in place, to be able to hit 250 to 500 assessments per year. And then once we start understanding which species are in need of conservation planning, starting to get into that realm. Also, our invasive species survey and removal work that we do ties into it. And also we can work with partners for in situ or actually ex situ conservation. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dan for a little bit.
Thanks, Helen. Hello, everybody. As you may have gathered from the earlier slides, the IUCN assessments are very detailed and very thorough. And this is a very ambitious effort involving a number of parties. A lot of the foundational work has been done by the Parsons Field Institute and the Citizen Science Program. You can see all the different steps we've been engaged in, including providing support and training for multiple classes now of NAU students who are working with Helen to also do some of the work. They are in fact developing a threats map and beginning to draft assessments, and all of the statistics that are being developed and all of the maps and the preliminary assessments will then be provided to an expert panel who will do the final detailed evaluation. Next slide. This work has been going on for a while, and much of the basic work, I'm pleased to say, has been done or is at least underway. And one of the things that we're proud of is the fact that in doing the work, we've also been developing and documenting protocols and training material that not only will we be able to use as we go through the species, but we're hopeful that other specialist groups working in arid lands also will be able to make use of. Another way that we at the Conservancy are trying to contribute to the broader regional efforts in this regard. Next slide. So a lot of work's already been done, as Helen said, to confirm which plants are native to the Sonoran Desert, to develop the threats map, and to begin to conduct the preliminary assessments. This is going to be a big job. As Helen mentioned, there are about 3,600 species of Sonoran Desert plants. We've started with the Fabaceae with 322 species, and after doing a lot of preliminary work, there are now 87 Fabaceae species that remain that are undergoing the beginning of this detailed assessment process. So that's where we are right now. Thanks, Helen.
So going back to the yellow portion of things, the drafting assessments of extinction risk we need to gather all these information that I referred to before, including the distribution map, which is what the stewards are working on, and major threats, which the students are were tasked with finding that information from scientific literature and other sort of gray literature out there. But it's really one of the most difficult things to find and pieces of information to find, and maybe arguably one of the most important ones to find. And so that motivated me to start developing this threats map that Dan referred to. And so I've been working with students for the past year to develop this, and recently held a workshop with experts to gain some review, an external review board. And so you'll see right here just a picture of it, but it currently has layers of urbanization, mining, some power facilities, transmission lines, roads. So many different threats that are on the ground, spatial and mappable. We are missing some layers, particularly in Mexico, and so that will be the next step in this project. But this will be hugely helpful for looking at threats for all of our species, especially when you have a rare species that doesn't have a lot of has a small distribution and has a difficult, you can look at the different populations and what threats they may be facing. And that's a really important category of in the 5 categories that I showed you, to look at whether it belongs in a threatened category or not. And so our next steps are that we hope to dive into the preserved flora and assess all of our plant species on the preserve. And that we hope will start moving us, you know, as we get species that have some threats, we'll be moving into the planning and acting. And in terms of during that assessment process, we can start initial conservation planning by using their IUCN buckets approach, where we can think about what are common threats for threatened species, or are they co-located in some locations where they can have added protections, or maybe they defy sort of categories and they need individual species, single species recovery planning. And then there's also when species get to a certain point and almost or extinct, then you really, or endangered, you want to think about ex situ conservation management. And did we leave time for questions, Tiffany?
Well, officially, you still have a couple of minutes left. We are into our break time, so I leave that up to participants. You are welcome to stick around and ask questions of these folks or of the other presenters, or go take some time to break. But either way, please be back by 3 o'clock so that we can start the second segment. So we did get one note on this presentation. It says that the IUCN work is a huge, worthy undertaking, and I thoroughly agree.
Thank you.